Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists. Hello, I'm Dango Rose, and this is the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. In this week's episode, we speak to Audrey Gebhardt, board member of the Carousel of Happiness. She shares with us exciting information about the upcoming Summer Carnival Day and Big Top Circus fundraiser taking place Saturday, July 22nd.
We hear this week's music mentions from Jamie Lammers, and special correspondent Maryann Rosen will share a special story about our local high mountain cultural gem, the Central City Opera.
And for our final story, Jamie shares a special interview with John McEuen, founding member of the legendary Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. They speak about the band's enduring legacy and reminisce about time spent at the Caribou Ranch back in the good old studio days.
But first, some news from your neighborhood.
Voting is open for this year's Views from the Top photo contest. You can see all entries both in this week's edition of the Mountaineer newspaper and online. Go to our website and follow the prompt to the page where you can view, vote, and share.
Festival season is in full swing in the mountains. From the Bazaar Cat Bazaar to the Nedfest family reunion, we now have a full calendar of events featured on our website. Get links and details to other events like the Ned Jazz Wine Fest, Library Story Time, and when our county and city governments meet to discuss important topics. You can find all of these events and more by visiting the Mountaineer website.
The Mountaineer team has begun working on the Fall Taste of the Peaks. If you have a food or beverage-related business, story, idea, or want to submit a local Colorado recipe for inclusion, contact info@themountaineer.com.
Have you heard? There's a circus coming to town, July 22nd at Chipeta Park. This year, board members have organized a dazzling Big Top Circus and Carnival Day to benefit the Carousel of Happiness. The first annual Summer Circus fundraiser will feature juggling, acrobats, Chinese pole, aerialists, food, and fun for the whole family. To learn more or to buy your tickets, go to www.carouselofhappiness.org.
Read more local news and feature stories in print and online at themountaineer.com.
And that's it for this week's news briefs. If you have something to share, you can send requests for submission to info@themountaineer.com. As long as it meets our community standards, we'll be sure to include it in a future episode. Brightwood Music has been serving the Peak to Peak region and beyond since opening in 2008. The full-service music store offers new and used instruments and will even repair the ones you've got. Go ahead and check them out on Facebook at Brightwood Music. Brightwood Music is the best music store with altitude across the Peak to Peak. For our lead story, Cynthia interviews Audrey Gebhardt, board member for the Carousel of Happiness. She's here to tell us about the Summer Carnival Day and Big Top Circus fundraiser happening this Saturday, July 22nd.
Hi, Audrey. Can you start by introducing yourself to our listeners?
Sure, yeah. My name is Audrey Gebhardt, and I'm a board member of the Carousel of Happiness.
So, Audrey, tell us about this event.
Yeah, totally. So we have some good friends that are they have created a circus troupe down in Denver called Circus Foundry. When they are not working on their own shows, a lot of them contract with Cirque du Soleil. So we have some incredible talent coming up to Netherlands to perform in these two shows. There are going to be 2 different shows, one at 2 p.m. that's more kid-focused. It's going to be a little bit shorter. And then an evening show is going to be like a 90-minute long show for adults at 7 p.m. In addition to the circus performances, we're also running a carousel from noon to 4. A carnival from noon to 4. And we have a bunch of nonprofits from the area creating carnival games that they're going to set up. And if you want to just join for the carnival, that's going to be great too. We have a Decent Bagel is going to be catering some really fun carnival snacks. We'll have cotton candy and popcorn and hot dogs and fresh squeezed lemonade. And it should be kind of everything you're looking for in a carnival. And then if you would also like to go to the circus, that's an option as well.
And this is a fundraiser for the Carousel of Happiness, correct?
It is 100% of the proceeds will benefit the Carousel of Happiness. And that really just helps keep the carousel turning and keeping ticket prices affordable and make sure that the carousel can last for years to come.
Audrey, would you tell everyone how they can find out more details?
Yes, if they go to carouselofhappiness.org, on the website, there's going to be a pop-up that says the circus is coming. And if they click on that, there's a link to buy tickets right there.
And is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
It's July 22nd. I guess I should have mentioned that. It's a Saturday. And we will have face painting at the carnival. There's going to be, during the circus, there's going to be aerialists, acrobats. There's going to be Chinese pole, which is this really cool kind of performance art. We'll have a magician. There's going to be some juggling. So it should be super, super fun.
Thank you, Audrey. We hope a lot of people come out to support the event. The Carousel of Happiness is a true gem for the town of Nederland and the many visitors that come to take a spin each year. Be sure to check out our show notes for a direct link to the Carousel of Happiness website, where you'll learn more about this event and other ways to donate.
I come from Fantasy Island, where we run and we jump and we play. I see no mass dividing by the games that we choose to play. But I am lost here. Sometimes I get so mad and I don't know why. But I can't blame you. I don't even see you. How could it be there's no you and I? Now we go to correspondent Jamie Lammers, who will be delivering this week's Music Mentions.
And now, for this week's Music Mentions. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, July 23rd at 3 p.m. to see the Gratefully Acoustic Duo performing live. Head to the Canyon Tavern, located at 32138 Highway 72 in Coal Creek Canyon on Friday, July 21st at 7 p.m. to see Will Whalen performing live, and on Saturday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. to see Rick Labato performing live. Head to the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill on Thursday, July 20th at 6 p.m. to see John McKay performing live, on Friday, July 21st at 6 p.m. to see Liam Purcell and Cane Mill Road performing live, and on Sunday, July 23rd at 6 p.m. to see the Andrew Duhon Trio performing live. Head to Howlin' Wind Brewing, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville on Saturday, July 22nd at 5 p.m. to see the No Go Gillbillies performing live. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Wednesday, July 19th at 5 p.m. to see an open mic night, on Thursday, July 20th at 7 p.m. to see the Megan Burt Band performing live, on Friday, July 21st at 7 p.m. to see the Jeremy Money Swing Band performing live, and on Sunday, July 23rd at 12:15 p.m. to see Mike Lamatola performing live. Head to JKQ Barbecue, located at 200 Gregory Street in Blackhawk on Friday, July 21st and Saturday, July 22nd at 6 p.m. to see Dewey Whitebill performing live. Head to Knotted Root Brewing, located at 250 North Caribou Street in Nederland on Friday, July 21st at 6 p.m. to see Luma Sky performing live. Also be sure to head there every Sunday at 5 p.m. for Jazz Sundays with Black Dog and Friends. Most Sundays at 4 p.m., the Millside Inn hosts an open jam. Be sure to head there at 44365 Highway 72 in Ward to check it out for yourself. Also be sure to head there on Friday, July 21st at 7 p.m. to see Ben Sproul performing live, and on Saturday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. to see Dennis Hyatt performing live. Head to the Nederland Farmers Market, located at 85 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, July 23rd at 10:30 a.m. to see Dead Fast Gillbillies performing live, and at 1 p.m. to see Kind Hearted Strangers performing live. Head Head to the train cars located at 101 Peak to Peak Highway in Nederland on Friday, July 21st at 8 p.m. to see a Kava karaoke night with Phil the Jukebox, on Saturday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. to see Lucas Wolf performing live, and on Sunday, July 23rd at 11 a.m. to see Black Dog performing live. And finally, head to the Very Nice Brewing Company located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Nederland on Thursday, July 20th at 6 p.m. to see The Gale performing live, and on Friday, July 21st at 6 p.m. to see Stone Hall performing live. Did we miss you or your performances? Want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountaineer.
Thank you, Jamie. Now let's drop in with special correspondent Maryann Rosen, who shares a fascinating tale about the history of the Central City Opera.
With the 2023 season at the Central City Opera House in full swing, this summer's offerings provide an opportunity for patrons to explore operas based on a few of Shakespeare's works in the close cherished ambiance of the oldest opera house in Colorado. Romeo and Juliet, Kiss Me Kate, based on the taming of the shrew, Othello, rarely performed due to its vocal difficulties, and a return to three main stage operas provide people with the chance to hear an array of incredible singers. Also incredible is the history of this building and opera. With many of the miners and residents at the time coming originally from Wales and Cornwall, there was a great musical heritage. In 1862, a theater named the Montana opened, but was then destroyed 12 years later in the Great Fire of 1874. A new theater, the Belvedere, opened, but occupied an upper floor of a building and was considered too small. In 1877, citizens organized a fundraising drive in order to build a grand opera house befitting what was at the time considered to be the richest mile on earth. Architect Robert Ruchleb was in charge of designing a space in the Renaissance Revival style, but keeping it understated. When built in 1878, San Francisco artist John Massman added elaborate trompe l'oeil murals to the interior. Early on, it served as both an opera house and theater and was very popular, often with benefactors throwing gold and silver nuggets onto the stage. When many of the mines began to slow down or close, so too did the fortunes of the Opera House, which sputtered along as a theater and movie house until its closing in 1927. By this time, the Opera House had also fallen into disrepair. Volunteer efforts driven by Ida Cruz McFarlane, Edna Chappell, and Ann Evans, among others, led to a major restoration in 1932. Lillian Gish, a famed actress of the time, opened the restored opera house starring in Camille. The director, Robert Edmund Jones, asked the audience to wear clothing of the 1870s on opening night to evoke the opera's early days. The opera house drew large crowds, even with treacherous drives, and the Central City Opera became a tourist attraction. An annual tradition had begun and continues to this day. Central City Opera is the fifth oldest opera in the United States and the second longest running summer opera festival after Chautauqua, all happening in Colorado's oldest opera house. It attracts patrons from across the country to its current 550 seats. This, of course, was not without its hiccups, as in 1942 through 44, it closed due to World War II, and it missed one season in 1982 due to financial reasons. It reopened the following year with a resolution to stage more popular productions. Other historical and interesting facts about Central City Opera are that on July 7, 1956, the world premiere of the American opera, The Ballad of Baby Doe, was performed at the Opera House. This love story of a rich miner and his much younger second wife became at the time Central City's signature piece. The Face on the ballroom floor, a frequently performed cabaret opera, was chosen to celebrate the opera's 1978 centennial season. Many of the chairs at the Opera House honor Colorado pioneers, performers, and supporters by having their names carved into the backs of seats. Besides Lillian Gish, other notables who have performed are Beverly Sills, Jerome Hines, Helen Hayes, Catherine Malfitano, Edwin Booth, P.T. Barnum Circus, and Buffalo Bill. Another fact about the Central City Opera is that it tries to keep in mind and acknowledge that it stands and operates on some traditional lands of indigenous people. One last thing to note is that the Central City Opera has played a significant role in the growth of Colorado's arts and cultural scene and in preserving the state's history. One of the ways to try to ensure the continuation of this culture is through the prestigious Bonfils Stanton Foundation's Artist Training Program. Founded by Artistic Director Emeritus John Moriarty, it has served for more than 4 decades as a national model for training young singers. For those wishing to attend, please go to the Central City Opera's webpage for information, dates, and tickets. And here is wishing for a great 2023 season and a continued growth of this rich heritage and tradition for many, many more seasons to come.
If you are a visual artist in the Peak to Peak area and want to include your studio, gallery, or workspace in the fall Peak to Peak Studio Tour, then go to themountaineer.com and sign up today. It is free to join, and artists will showcase their finest work to visitors and art lovers in all autumn splendor. Again, to sign up, visit themountaineer.com and follow the links to the Peak to Peak Studio Tour.
Lazy yellow moon coming up tonight, shining through the trees. Crickets are singing and lightning bugs are floating on the breeze. Baby, get ready. Across the field where the creek turns back by the old stumble road, I'm gonna take you to a special place that nobody knows. Baby, get ready. Ooh, you and me going fishing in the dark, lying on our backs and counting the stars where the cool grass grows. Down by the river in the full moonlight, we'll be falling in love in the middle of the night, just moving slow. The whole night through, it feels so good to be with you.
That was a piece of Fishing in the Dark by the infamous Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. For our final story, Jamie Lammers interviews John McEuen, founding member of the legendary band. They talk about their wild times recording at the Caribou Studios and the ongoing legacy of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lammers, and today I'm here with a very special musical guest. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, this is John McEuen. I'm here with Jamie. I spent over 50 years of my life with Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. What did you want to know today?
Well, I primarily wanted to ask if you had recorded at Caribou Ranch.
That was in the 70s. We did some wonderful recordings up there. I did some recording up there that wasn't with the Dirt Band, too. But when the Dirt Band was there, it was the epitome of rock and roll excess. You know, everybody had a cabin and food being served in a central place to eat. And between 8 and 10:30, we'd have breakfast. And it was like excess. Where's the bass player? Oh, he's on a horse. He'll be back in about an hour. He'd get back. Where's the guitar player? Oh, he went back to his room for a bit. And the places were all spread out. You know, they weren't right on top of each other, the places where you'd stay. But it was wonderful. Where's John? He's up playing pool. You finally get to the studio to record, and you could be worn out. So much stuff and time is going on. But we did some really good recordings there. The piano was great, and the amplifiers were great, the headphones and everything.
What was your ultimate goal in going to Caribou Ranch?
trying to get as good a recording as we possibly could. But sometimes that would be inhibited by the fact that you were at 8,000 feet. And if you had a sax player playing something on a song and the lick went, well, he could only get enough air to go, because the air was so much thinner. And if you were a singer, you couldn't sing as much because the air was so much thinner. And if you were just anybody, you would tire out easily. But we did some recordings that were really good on the album called Symphonium Dream. One of my favorite recordings was a new version of Battle of New Orleans. But some of my favorite recording up there was with Michael Martin Murphey. Michael Murphy had a song called Wildfire about a horse that ran away, and a song called Carolina in the Pines. And on Carolina in the Pines, I got to play the 5-string banjo with a solo that seemed to make an impression I was glad of. I've had people tell me over the years that was a song that they started playing banjo for, and people really liked it. It was a hit in 1978 or so.
What were some of your favorite memories during your time at Caribou Ranch?
Well, it was a good place to have family members, wives, and I had a couple of my kids with me, and they were pretty small, and it was a nice thing to be there. It was only 45 minutes from where I lived over in Clear Creek County. Let's see, Idaho Springs or Evergreen? I think I lived in Evergreen at the time. And it was just really, you knew it was a unique spot. You knew that Jim Guercio was managing Chicago and playing with the Beach Boys. Jim Guercio owned it, He was a manager and a producer and a bass player. And he must have been a really good bass player because he played with a lot of people. And his brother, Jeff Guercio, was a wonderful engineer. He died in a hang gliding accident while we were up there. It was a tragic day. But going up to Caribou was always a wonderful adventure.
How many times did you go to Caribou Ranch to record?
I think 3, but one time was for 2.5 weeks, one was for a week, and one was for maybe 2 days. Michael Murphy was rather short. We played on 3 or 4 songs. No, I think it was 4. And maybe I played on 2 of his albums and they were done there. But I think it was 2 of his albums. And everybody felt when you were at Caribou that you were making music that this might matter. This might get out there. This might be something that's on the radio. This is what you're doing and you're at the best place to be doing it. And it felt like you had to come up to its level.
And why did Caribou Ranch stand out to you amongst other recording studios?
It had the best mixing boards combined with the really great playback speakers and the right multi-track machines. Now, there was one of the problems, because you were in Netherlands at 8,000 feet, and if you had a problem with the capstan on the tape recorder, or you weren't getting the head alignment right, we couldn't set it. You had to line tape then for playback and recording, and you had to adjust them every morning. If you had to have something worked on, you had to fly a guy in from Chicago, and that would take a day. That happened 2 or 3 times while we were there, and it kind of slowed things down. But overall, they had the best equipment, meaning amplifiers, pianos, microphones, and space to be in.
Did you end up writing anything at Caribou Ranch, or was it mainly recording?
No, it was mainly going up there. We had stuff we had to record. Let's go to Caribou. Okay, they got an opening. We'll take that one, and we'll go there and record. The Dirt Band was just recording where it could when it had material ready, which was maybe a mistake. We didn't write things because we had a studio date.
Who else did you record with while you recorded with Michael Martin Murphy?
I think Charlie Daniels was on something, and Jeff Hanna was singing on something, and Jimmy Ibbotson, Ibbotson. He lives in Woody Creek now. He's the one that did the great version of Battle of New Orleans. It was really one of my favorites.
And why else did Caribou Ranch stand out to you amongst all the other recording studios?
Because of the equipment that had been gathered in one spot. One place had everything you needed. You had the piano that was used on, I believe, Bridge Over Troubled Water. You had microphones that were the magic kind of microphones that would make you sound as good as possible. $10,000 and $20,000 microphones, as well as cheap ones. You had a great mixing board and recording machine. And it was all in one spot. And it was great to have access to that. And you could have access to it if you were booked in there for 2 weeks. Nobody else was going to be coming in and moving stuff around. It was yours. And that led to excesses. That led to time being wasted. That led to somebody who was doing drugs and they go, oh, I don't know, man. I don't feel like recording right now. And maybe a few hours later, the other guy didn't feel like recording or whatever. It was kind of difficult in that it was so good because it allowed you to be lazy. But it wasn't lazy all the time or whatever, but it was something that had to be dealt with. Somebody like Elton John would go up there and knock out a great record.
At the time you recorded at Caribou Ranch, did it feel like you were recording at another level?
No, it was like everybody was kind of equal. Paul McCartney didn't go there to record. That would have felt like something special. The people that were going there to record were just people at the same level that you were at. You're in the business, you're making records. This is a place you make good records. Oh boy, let's make some good ones. But people weren't legends yet. John Denver wasn't a legend. He was still alive. He was only 3 or 4 years into his career. I don't think he recorded there. He might have. But Dan Fogelberg, he was pretty well known, but he was early in his career too.
Is there anything else about Caribou Ranch that stood out to you at the time?
It was nice to have a situation where you could spend an hour or two experimenting with something, trying to use a guitar different or maybe a banjo or doing something unusual with a lap steel guitar. It was good in general. The thing about you could get lazy. Well, not everybody was lazy at once, and sometimes that would happen, but there's also periods of work where you would be sitting in the studio plugging away for 8 or 10 hours. It was a great place to be.
And finally, I wanted to ask, what was your reaction to the revelation that Caribou Ranch had been burned down?
My reaction was, well, it had been getting less and less business because of being at 8,000 feet and hard to fix things. And it seemed like it was a convenient fire. The important stuff didn't get burned. And I was sorry to see it happen. I had heard that the important parts of the studio did not get burned, and they were very lucky about that. That's what I heard.
Thank you so much to John McEuen for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. If you want to learn more about some of the other artists that recorded there, be sure to head to caribouranch.com/pages/artists to learn more about the history of the Caribou Ranch.
That concludes this week's episode of the Mountain Air Podcast, where everybody's listening.
Visit our website at www.themountaineer.com to read more information about today's guests. Pick up a copy of this week's print edition of The Mountaineer at newsstands all across the Peak to Peak. I'm Dango Rose.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Thank you for listening.
You name it, we've got it.
You know, up here in the mountains, things are weird.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.